Welcome everyone to the Spring 25 release chat. We've got, I think this might be one of the most people we've had join for this particular one. So welcome. So you guys are such draw cards, we'll have to get you back. Yeah, basically I'll run through some, there we go. So I'll run through a short welcome, some event announcements, and then we'll get right into it. We don't have Josephine on the line or Tanya yet, but I'm Anne, and we're your user group leaders. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We've got a LinkedIn page, and you can get updates on future events from there. We try to post it on the Trailblazer site as well. And our next event, which is an in-person event next week, this is a collaboration between our user group, the Women in Tech group, and the Slack user groups. So Salesforce has come up with an Agentforce community tour. So it's like a workshop style thing. And we'll try and tie in some Slack stuff in there as well. So we'll deploy an agent on an Experience Cloud site with a Slack agent. And we've got swag goodies available as well. So definitely sign up for that if you're going to be in the city at that time. Details are on our community group site, and shoot me a message if you need any links. I'll post them in the chat. Otherwise, obviously, the LinkedIn page and wherever you signed up for this one would have that as well. Okay, and other community events, obviously our workshop next week. The Melbourne Architects will be having a community group meetup in February, and then Agentforce World Tour in Sydney, followed by the Salesforce Commons Community Sprint, also in Sydney. So again, if you need links, shoot me a message and I'll post some links up for you. Also, the Melbourne Marketer Group has come up. They've got 6 months worth of events on their page, so they're really super organized. So the first one kicks off on the 20th of March. So visit their page if you're interested in what they've got going. All right, now some housekeeping. We'll hold questions to the end, and obviously, if we can, we'll hold questions to the end. Otherwise, post them in the chat. Daryl will be monitoring that. So if it ties in with anything and they can pick it up during the talk, they'll definitely do so. And as I said earlier, so Daryl, who did a fantastic job presenting the Summer 24 release features last year for us, has kindly offered to come back to show us features in this release. And this time he's brought a +1 in Tim Combridge. So hopefully we don't scare you away. So now I'll just hand it over to them.
Thank you, Anne. And let's get started. Gotta click the right button here. Here we go. Okay, that looks better. All right, so Spring 25, as seen through the eyes of Daryl and Tim. That's what we look like, or we used to look like when we were in our younger days, when we both lived in Brisbane.
I had some good hair back in the day.
Yeah, Tim had a lot of hair then. I don't know what happened.
It's all gone.
I've still got most of mine. It's just changed colour. Anyway, that's as much introduction as you get for us. If you don't know who we are, you'll have to go find us on LinkedIn and then you can read all about us. But let's get on with the show. So that's what we're here for. I've split this into 2 parts. First part is the admin features, and then the second part is specifically for Flow, because both of us are pretty keen on Flow and we probably both wanted to do that bit anyway. So in the admin features, I've just picked out half a dozen of these features. View all fields. We got list views, new list views for permission sets and roles. We've got a new user welcome email. We've got work order and work order line items that have got a bit of love. And we've got improvements to list views for users. So Tim's going to demo all these in just a minute. So that's the admin features that we're going to look at. There's a whole lot more because there's like hundreds of pages of release notes, but we just cherry picked out. And these were some of them. If you saw my sneak peeks that I posted on LinkedIn, these were the top rating ones. And in fact, view all fields was the top rating one of those sneak peeks. And it's quite a simple one. It reminds me of a feature from a couple of releases back, which was also a very simple one and hugely populated. And that was that blank space that you can put into a record page. So you balance up the page so that if you've got two columns, you don't have, one with a sort of a space there and nothing there that you could pop this blank space into. Again, that was hugely popular, but from a technical point of view, from Salesforce work effort, it was probably minimal, but it became one of the most popular features of that release. So view all fields is a bit like that. On the flow side of things, another relatively simple one is being able to put a limit on get records. So we don't have to get all of the records. We can just set the number that we want. Emails with attachments, validation on screen flows, being able to open multiple versions of flows in the canvas, showing progress indicators. Tim will show us how the new flow user experience, and he'll also demonstrate the reactive screen actions. And again, these were the highlights from the sneak peeks that we had. So thank you. We'll do that at the end. Okay, so that's my part. I'll stop sharing there and I'll hand it over to Tim. And Tim's going to start off, share his screen with us.
Sure am.
And I'll just direct him where we want to go to start with. Okay, so you're already in. So we want to look at this view all fields field where this lives, Tim. So what does it do?
Well, what we can see initially, if we go over to the object permissions in the view summary, which I'm sure we've all come to love in recent releases, you can see firstly that it is checked off against the allergy object. Daryl, while I go and show where you can set it up, did you want to talk through its functionality, what it does, and where it might be beneficial?
Yeah, actually, can we go to Object Manager, Tim, and just have a look at the object? So can we look at that? Yeah, because this might be where people are more familiar with it. And if we just look at our where am I looking? Yeah, okay. Oh, no, sorry, you were in the right place. Yeah, but in a permission set. Yeah. So in a permission set or in a profile. Sorry.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So if we're looking at it in a permission set, we're looking at object settings. Okay, so you'd be familiar with, and let's look at that object. So you'd be familiar with the values here that we've got. Now, there's also a change here. Before we just had view all and modify all. So they've actually been renamed. So you notice now they're view all records and modify all records. So the word record's been added to the end of that just to clarify that. But we've got this new one called view all fields. Now, this is kind of neat in some ways because if you check that for this permission set, or you can apply it at a profile level as well, it means that any new fields that are created on this object, this permission set will be updated to provide whoever it's assigned to with the view all. So they'll be able to have read access to those fields. Now, that's really important. For example, if you've got, let's say you've got a backup user, you're using Own Backup or one of the backup tools, and have a developer who creates some new fields on an object. If they forget to give your backup user read-only access to them, it might be, 6 months down the line when you've got a disaster recovery problem that you realize, oh hell, none of those backups have those new fields in them. So this is kind of a neat feature to make sure that for that. So what I would be doing is I would be creating a permission set for our backup user, and I'd be adding every object into it, and I'd be adding view all fields to every one of them just to double check and make sure of that. And you could probably also assign that to your admin user as well, just to make sure that any new fields created that they can't forget and miss that, checking that box there. All right, so you'll always have access to all fields if that's checked. Now, obviously there's a danger there as well. It's a bit like modify all and view all, don't give that out indiscriminately. All right, thank you for that one, Tim. The next one is, while we're talking about permission sets, Tim, we've got a list view. Now, have we got that enabled? Yes, we have, yes. So you can see now that we've got that new list view there, and it's got all of the features that, except there's that little bug. That's not fixed yet, but you can select the fields, only if you're not, it depends which one you're using. I think maybe if you create a new one. Now you should be able to select the fields that you want. Yep, so you can select the fields. You can order them however you want them.
Should be a very familiar interface with what very similarly to the rest of Salesforce. Good.
Yeah, and you've got filtering as well, so there's a filter option there. Yeah. Okay, so that's nothing new there. Well, nothing new. It's a list view. It's a modern list view. Okay, so that's nice. So we've got that. The other one is on roles. Tim, can we have a look at roles? Because we've also got a list view here. Okay, so now we've got the same thing here on roles. Okay, and
where's
so because
roles typically would have a hierarchy, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's the problem. We've lost the hierarchy. Yeah.
What a trade-off.
So yeah, you win some, you lose some. Now these are both set up in, I've forgotten where, Tim. Where was it?
It's in user management settings, isn't it?
User management, is that where it was?
Yes.
So this is where you turn these two on. So they won't be on by default. And of course you won't see them yet unless you've got a sandbox that's been upgraded, or perhaps you've got a developer preview, a pre-release, pre-release one. Okay, so there are the two settings. And Tim's just turned off that one for the role. And if we now go back to the role, now we can see that hierarchy again once we check a couple of boxes. If you expand all. Yeah, so I'd be inclined to give that, one poop emoji for effort.
I think too, given that hierarchy exists already in elsewhere in Salesforce, it could have been sort of reused and recycled a little bit. Wouldn't have been difficult, I would have thought.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that would be too hard. Yeah, so that's a bit disappointing, that one. So you win some and you lose some. So for permission sets, yeah, that's fine. But I don't think we'd be turning that on for roles anytime soon, because, well, who can remember where your Eastern sales team fit in the hierarchy? It's not very helpful.
Oh, I mean, it's easy. You just got to click into it and then try and visualize that in your head.
Yeah. Not so helpful. Okay, now when we create a new user account in Salesforce, there's a standard email that goes to them. We can now actually customize that, and just to be really tricky, they've hidden this away under session settings. So right down the bottom here, there's a welcome email template down the bottom there, and you can also set how many days until that link expires. So it's either 7 days or 1 day. I think, 180 days is another choice there. Yeah.
It's not showing my options on the screen. Sorry. It's 1, 7 or 180.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got 3 different options there, and you can create an email template and assign it there, and then provide your own custom message to your end users. So, provide them with an onboarding email, terms and conditions, whatever you want to in there, instead of just getting the standard Salesforce one. So that's kind of nice. Now, there's been some improvements with performance around object home pages, and it's been a bit of a slow migration for some of them, but we've now got work orders. So Tim, can we go to object? Oh no, we can just go straight to work orders. Yep, thank you.
One I prepared earlier.
Here's one he's got from earlier. All right, so work orders didn't have the Lightning Web component sort of framework behind it, but it does now, which means that if we hit the edit page, and if you're a frequent user of work orders, this will be something that you'll like, is that you've now got all the dynamic features. And if you look at, so there's a couple of things that tell you that it's got dynamic features. One is you'll get that field options up the top there. But if you just go straight to D for dynamic in that list of standard objects that you've got there, is you'll see that you've got dynamic related list single there. If you've got that, you know that your object's all ready to go. So work order and work order line items now have all these dynamic features. So we've got, I think there's 4 of them: dynamic forms, dynamic actions, dynamic related list, and the dynamic highlights panel at the top as well. Okay, so you got all 4 of those features. Still missing is campaigns and campaign members. That was supposed to be, I think, this release or maybe the previous one. It's still missing, and they did say it was going to be a multi-release effort to get that one across the board, but yeah, so it's not there. If you've got a campaign record, Tim, and if you open that, you can straight away see that because the dynamic related list is missing, and you see up there the fields is missing, and no dynamic stuff there. Okay, so it's just still using the same object. Alrighty, and the last one is the list view for users. Tim, back to setup. So this has now moved across to general availability, and it's also got some inline editing capability there, Tim. If we've got fields that we can inline edit,
we should that on, don't I? Have I?
Yeah, if we put maybe that department field in there, that might be one. Or the role, can you edit role? Oh, yeah, try.
What about manager? Maybe I'll stick as department. Role as well, stick it together, and manager. Okay. Beautiful. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so we've got inline editing capability there now. I don't think you can be your own manager, Tim, but you can try.
I will always be my manager.
Okay, so so that's moved across to general availability, and we've got the inline editing as well. And Anne is reminding us that products got that dynamic capability as well. Yeah, so there's a couple still left to go. I know campaigns is one that people are sweating on. Okay, so that's our admin features. Now in Flow, Tim, what have we got in Flow? Our first one is, and I believe you've got a flow that you prepared earlier.
I do indeed. Before we go into this flow, though, because I noticed the order was of points that I had before was probably, there's one that I should show, I think, at the beginning.
Yep.
And, what are we doing? We start a new flow, we click new flow, right? We get this beautiful few seconds of wait, and then we get this beautiful, do you want to start from scratch or do you want to use the template, right? We love this screen.
No, we don't.
Really? Except this new automation app that came out a couple of releases ago. If we click new from this screen, we get the same few seconds of wait, but then a slightly different new automation screen. So you'll notice, and the reason it is in the same org, we have both. So we have new flow, which you'll note I clicked in setup, and then you've got new automation, which I clicked from the automation app. Now, I don't know about you, but this is much, much, much cleaner. You've got, rather than saying, do you want to start from scratch or start a template? If you start from scratch, it's one extra click. If it's a template, you've got 2 extra clicks. You have to select it, then click next. But from here, you can access your, access every flow from the one screen, including the most frequently used types of flows down the bottom, which is just going to save a few clicks. It gets everything front and center as kind of almost as it used to be, but with a little bit of a modern flair to it as well. And we have search, which is brilliant. So if I want to just, what was it for? Auto launch. Started typing it. There we go. Your auto launch.
So you have to ask the question, Tim, why hasn't this new view moved across to setup?
Yes.
Yeah.
And even more, which we won't go into detail too much about now, but even more interestingly, if we go start from scratch, there are 2 new approval
Yes.
flow. I thought there were 2, now there's only 1. Anyway, we've got this approval orchestration, but if we go into the new view and I type in approval,
there's nothing.
We have, it's not there.
There's only a template, yeah. So those two new ones are missing as well, yeah.
Very interesting, yeah. So normally we see where Salesforce will implement a new way of doing things and go, okay, the old one's going to work, but we're going to focus on and build out the new one more. But in this case, we can see oddly that they're putting the new thing and also implemented something into the old thing and not put the new thing from the old thing in the new thing, which I don't know about you, but that sounds slightly confusing. So we'll see. We will see.
Tim, just while we're there and we're talking about this approval process, so I think our listeners will be aware of approval processes in Salesforce. They're a bit old and a bit clunky, and there's been a bit of pressure on them to revamp them. But I think now this is not written in concrete anywhere, but I think what's happening is that you'll be able to do this in Flow Orchestrator, which is like sort of like the granddaddy flow that pulls a whole bunch of other flows into it. But the problem with that is it was always a paid extra, or after so many free orchestrations, you had to pay. But I think what they've decided to do, and as I say, this is not set in concrete, but I think what they've decided to do is to say, well, hang on, we've got a better approval process in Orchestrator. Why don't we let people use that instead of us having to rewrite approval processes? Now, I think the details about that decision is yet to come out. And yeah, so there's our old approval process, and you can now
jumpstart wizard.
Yeah. So now being able to do that in orchestration, hopefully in the future, but the detail about that is very slim at the moment. So we're still waiting for more information about that. Okay. Back to Flow, Tim.
Yes.
One of our first things was the get records limits. Can you show me how that works?
So get records is great. You'll notice though that I have labeled it get 10 records. I could do that by giving out criteria that I know for a fact is going to bring out 10, but that's not really reliable. You know what's interesting, Daryl? In SOCL, what developers can do is they can put limit something.
Yeah.
Let's say 10, and they can put that in. But Flow, we haven't been able to do that.
Yeah.
Until.
So that's a standard SQL statement, that limit. Like any other SQL database, that limit feature's been around since Adam was a boy. So nothing new, but we've just made it available in Flow now, or Salesforce Health. Now, the good thing about that is it's only going to get you the 10 records. So it's not going to go and get, if your criteria is not real tight on your filtering, it's not going to go and get, 50,000 records and then go, oh, and have an error because, you've run out of resources or you've hit your limits or something like that. So that's the good thing. So otherwise what you'd have to do is you'd have to get all your records, filter them the best that you could, and then do a filter element and filter down to just the last 10. So you don't have to do that now. You can do it all in one. Good one. What about sending an email with an attachment, Tim? Is that your next screen?
wouldn't that be great if we could configure that inside of the send email, which we've all come to love once again?
Yeah.
Previously, you couldn't do that. There was no ability to add an attachment, but you'll notice here in the send email attachment ID, we have the ability to do so. The optional, comma delimited list of attachment IDs in the email. So you populate that and you can send off your attachments.
Now, how are we going to get attachment ID without hard coding it, Tim? How would you do that? Because if we were to type in the ID of the attachment there, you'd have some person come along and wrap you over the knuckles, wouldn't you, and say that that's a bad practice.
That's right. That's right. And there was some, I believe in, I'll be honest with you, it's totally slipped my mind now, but I remember you ran into some interesting discoveries when trying to populate multiple attachment IDs. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Is that just entering my mind? It's just incorrect.
Yeah. So I thought, oh, okay, so I can put one in there, that's fine, but what if I put a couple in there? And so I put in the first ID, comma, space, and then the next one, and it goes, nah, doesn't like that. But objected to the space, so it's really picky. If you're going to have a list of IDs there, it has to be ID, comma, without any spaces in there anywhere. Okay, so whether you something like that. So whether you populate them into another variable and use that, or whether you were to just, I know it's bad practice, but I was just testing it, and I just hard coded them because I just wanted to see, well, can it take multiple values there? And yes, it can, but just no. You weren't allowed to do it without any spaces in between. It's a pity that doesn't support a list because a collection, because that's typically what you'd have, wouldn't you?
That's right.
A collection of files that you wanted to attach. Okay. Look, I just noticed a question there from Jessica about on that get records. How does it know which 10 to get, Tim? Can we just go back there? So
yes.
The 10 will be based on that filter.
It'll be a combination of the filter and the sort order, I think. So depending on how it retrieves the list, if there's 100, let's say, it'll just grab the first 10. So if we went, none and get all by ascending created date or something, then it'll grab the first 10 by that. Yeah.
So you can manipulate which 10 it is by setting either the filtering so that you only get those ones, or of the ones that you do get by sorting them so that then you only get the top 10. So it might be the top 10 opportunities by amount or something like that. All right.
10 latest opportunities, something. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tim, another one is input validation in a flow. How has that changed?
Yeah, let me just, what I could do actually, I could delete all these different elements and clean it up to make sure that the flow is going to do what it's supposed to. Or there's another feature as well, which on the fly, I think it makes sense to jump over to that one as well.
Yeah.
You can finally access all the different versions of your flow. Yeah. So rather than having to clean up and do all of that, I can jump back over to version 2, which will open version 2, or I can go up to version 3, which turns out I do still have to play stuff anyway. But that's very, very cool as well. So now instead of having to go out and back in, and previously the flow details screen is not so nice to navigate. This is much, much, much better, and it's there. If you've done something accidentally deleted, you come back, what was it again? Just go back a version. I told you away you go. And you can see which one's active and inactive as well.
Got lots of claps for that one, Tim. That's a good one.
It's about time, that one. I like that one.
Yeah. So let's have a look at this immediate input validation. How does that work?
So immediate input validation, as we know, screen flows are becoming a lot more reactive, meaning, based on things that occur on the page without having to click next. You've got a lot more life to your flow, basically. So if I go in here, who's the better presenter? It's Daryl. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. Sorry, Daryl Moon. Hang on a second. No, it can't be. Oh, okay.
Oh.
Sorry. So here we I'm mucking about. But what we can see here, I'll show you the way I've configured that. If I go to the screen, I go to the field, and I go validate input. I've literally just, who's the better presenter is equal to Tim. That's the only way about that. But what that does is rather than showing us the error after clicking next, now we can see it straight away. So if the answer is not correct, or if it's not the right structure, if it's not whatever, you'll know before you have to move and click next. Like it's a lot nicer. Even if you sort of tab through a form or whatever, you got to tab next space, and then you're back in. It's like, oh, okay, a couple of seconds wasted. This way, it's straight away. You can see if something's right, if something's wrong, if it's the wrong format, whatever, before you leave the field.
Yeah, now the only thing that I don't like about this, Tim, is that, and I've seen this on other websites like outside of Salesforce, you might be typing in your date of birth or something, and it comes up and it tells you that your format's wrong. And you think, well, hell, I haven't finished typing the number in there yet. How can it be wrong? So it would have been nice if they'd put a couple of second delay on here, because as soon as you type one character, if you just press one letter there, Tim, on your keyboard, so straight away you've got the error. Well, hang on.
Even though you're on the right track already.
Yeah, it's not wrong yet because you've got the T for Tim. So that would have been nice to have. But anyway, okay. All right, the next one, open flow versions in the canvas. We already saw that. Thanks, Tim, for that.
Sorry.
What about this? We've got a progress indicator on the screen there, Tim, that we haven't shown what it means yet. Yeah,
we do. That's right. So sometimes when you're panning through a flow, you want to be able to see, especially if it's sort of a multi-screen, like an intake form or whatever else. There are other tools out there that Salesforce offer this sort of thing, so it's really good to see it come to ScreenFlow. So we can see up the top, I've just got simple stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. If I go, oh no, I can't go to the next screen. This is a spoiler. We'll get there. But what I've configured inside of this screen is if I now I've had, here we go, stage. So we create these stage values, and if I go and create a 4th screen now, I'll show you what that looks like to set up. So I've got screen, I created screen 4. Come back, I've got thoughts flying through my head. I'll come back to it. I do have these existing stages, but let's say I want to create a 4th screen. Okay, so we go stage 4. The order, so I set the order in which the stages fly. I can put stage 4 at order 1, which means it will come up, around where stage 1 is. Probably not ideal, because logically it doesn't make sense, but you might have, your personal details, then followed by housing details, then followed by financial information. You can see that up top. You know what's coming next. You know how far through the flow you are in this entirety, which is always great to see. So I'll go order 4, active by default. So that to activate it and show up throughout the flow. And there we go. I've just added another screen. So if I'll add 0 to that and go save, and in fact, I'll go save as new version. Close like that flow. Save as new version. There we go. We can now see we're up to V4. In 3, 2, 1. There it is. We go debug. And now we will see that flow is just a little bit longer. Stage 3 and then stage 4 at the end. So handy way of visualizing how far through a flow you are. It's a lot better for the users too, because they get to see.
Now, just to put you on the spot, Tim, while you're editing that flow, where do we see this? Because that tricked me the first time.
Oh yeah. So inside of, where do we see? Hang on, which part? Sorry, how to configure.
Yeah, where do you because there's 3 different types of those indicators. Can you show us where those are set? Because that tricked me.
Oh, they're flicking between the types. Sorry. Yes, you are absolutely right. So what I showed you in here was how to set the stage of this particular screen flow, right? So you might be digging through going, okay, I want to change up how it looks. I'll go, okay, it's in the header. Oh, hang on, it's not in the header. Okay, well, it's definitely not the footer. Screen actions, that doesn't make any sense.
This is me looking for it.
It was, it's not super. I mean, look, I like that it's big, and I like that it provides that preview, because that does bring your eye to it, make it a lot easier to see. But it's still, it's hidden away inside. I'll show you again. Okay, so you've missed it. You got to go to properties at the top, where you sort of name your flow and you set your description. Show advanced.
Yeah.
And then
you can do it when you save as well. Yeah.
That's right. So you can turn it on or off, and then you can set what type it is. So I've got currently it's just set to simple top of screen. There's also path, which that'll look familiar. So that's like when you progressing through a leader opportunity, you'll see that little path banner up the top, or you can have it down the bottom in between the buttons, which is kind of cool as well. Which I actually like this one, because one thing you'll notice as we're going through it, what if I go, Tim, I click next, I'm coming into something. Oh, there's our template before, that's okay. Oh, hang on, I've forgotten something. You can hear me clicking, but I can't click that. It's not interactive. So
No.
I like that you can put it at the bottom, because that to me just feels slightly less like it should be interactive. Whereas you put it inside of your flow, here I'm filling out, I'm clicking buttons, I'm filling out text details. Because it's in this section, to me, it feels it should be clickable.
Yeah.
So by putting it at the bottom, it just kind of separates and provides a little bit more of a hierarchy, if that makes sense.
So that's a new feature request, hey Tim. You want it to be clickable.
Yeah. That's it. It would be great to be clickable and to be able to move back and forth. I know there's complexity in that, but it would be good.
All right, so that's nice. There's also another one. There's another version of this, and I think it's in the App Exchange, actually. And it has about 10 different variations on it as well. But I don't think it's clickable either. Yeah.
From memory, notice, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. But it did have some nice variations on what it looks like and where it can be located and so forth. Okay, thanks for that, Tim. The new flow experience was the next one, but you've already shown us that. So that was whether or not you create your flow from the app or whether you do it from setup. And the last one is the piece de resistance. This is our reactive screen actions.
Cool.
So we've seen actions on buttons before, and that meant that on a screen flow, you could click a button and that triggers another flow to run to do something magical. But now with reactive screen actions, we don't even have to click a button. So what is that going to look like, Tim?
Oh, it's going to look like a whole new world, Daryl. Let me show you. So I've got these somewhere embedded secretly in this flow, and I won't show it until I'm showing it. I do call out another flow. So for those of us, again, who remember the flow action buttons, previously if I, let's say I wanted to populate the state that I'm in, so it's the down the Irons, Queensland, there's a couple from around the rest of the country and beyond as well, and I wanted to tell me my capital city, I'd have to type in my state, either move my mouse or tab out and click the button to call the flow, which was good, don't get me wrong, but wouldn't it be cool if you just kind of had to think about it and it happened rather than having to click the button, which is always great. So what I've done, very rudimentary. I want zero judgment from anybody on this, all right? There's an auto launch flow. What's the capital city of a state? And I've just populated a couple states. So we've got Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, and then a default outcome, which tells me it's invalid state. Again, a very, very, very rudimentary flow. We've got Victoria here, output equals Melbourne. And what that does inside of my flow, so I go, this, we've got our leads from, this shows our 10 again. If I go next, so what's the state? Well, currently it's invalid. And I want to point out as well, similar to what Daryl was talking about before about, the input validation. I haven't actually put anything in here yet. So why is it automatically pushing me to invalid state, which is my unknown? I don't know. In my opinion, it should only call the flow once it has, you started inputting, you started taking some form of action.
Yeah.
I did a bit of testing at the beginning when I first sort of got access to the org, and I had this hidden until the success message was true. In other words, it had run, and it always ran. And I thought it was a bug, but I'm realizing now it's just how it works. So if I go in here and I type Queensland, though, it will rerun it. It'll go, cool. It's going to call my flow. Your input is QLD. What's the capital city? It's going to look at this. Oh, okay. It's either Queensland or QLD, and it's going to assign my my variable, which is output city, which of course is available for small button, available for output. Okay, and it's passing that back to. I'm going to start closing a bunch of this, just tabbing along, passing it back to my other flow, which is up here, and displaying it in, I think, screen 2.5. Yeah, which is the way I've configured it, and the way you do configure it as well is you click on the header of the screen. So previously, action buttons you had to drag on. It's not like that. It's not dragging a component on. It's actually embedded straight into the screen itself. So if I wanted to add one to screen 2, for example, click on the header, scroll down, select screen actions, add an action. First, I pick my flow, which is whatever the flow is. I'll select the same thing again. It's in beta. And then I select my input values, and I can include, whatever it is, and then it'll show me the output resources like that, which I'm now going to go and turn off. go back to this one, which I did prepare earlier. If I want to input if I want to use the output value from the subflow, I go up here. I can see screen actions in its own little section. I click in there. I can see the is success. So that was what I was using before to attempt to only show, like, have the component show when is success was true. But off the bat, it already is true because it runs on, the loading of that page as well as the updating of that page. But then we can see the results here, which is the output. I can see the interview status and the output component. So the output variable as well I set up. So that's how we do things like that. Victoria, Melbourne. I'll do New South Wales. I think the longest one for typing out fully. Of course. There we go. We got Sydney as well. So rather than having to type it in and then click a button, it just happens. It's like magic. Sorry, Daryl, cut you off.
Yeah, the other place I've seen that used, Tim, in some of the other demonstrations was you might have a lookup field there on account, and you select an account record, and then below it will display, and this comes from another flow, it will display a table of all the open opportunities for that account. Or alternatively, you could display all the open cases. Maybe you could display both of them. So it might be something that your sales rep wants to do a quick overview of the customer before they go and visit. They want to see all the open opportunities and all the open cases all on one screen. So you could do that as well, really simply.
I like it. I'd be curious, actually. I was just thinking here, you could almost have like a one-stop shop flow that has a list of top 10 opportunities to deal with today. And as you click them, it'll show you the details of the opportunity under it. So
yeah, you could too. Yeah.
To make sure that's reactive, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of fun that we can have with flows and building out that reactivity stuff in there. Great, thank you, Tim. Now, just looking back at the chat, there was a question from Jessica about what a work order is used for. Now, from my understanding, I've not actually used them in a production environment, but my understanding is, let's say, for example, you've got a case where a customer has got a faulty bit of equipment or something like that, and you have to go on site to actually visit them and fix it. So that's where you could use a work order, and you assign the work order to one of your team to go out on site and fix that customer's problem. So it's sort of like it's kind of like a task in the case, I suppose, whereby you could have multiple work orders that go together with the case. So they're, subsidiaries of the case or child records of the case. And there is a link back here too. And you can even have parent work orders as well. So, excuse me. So yeah, hopefully that answers Jessica's question there. What else has she asked? What about products? I think Anne's answered that. Good. All right. Any other questions? Where else can we show, Tim? There must be something we've missed. We've got 12 minutes.
Yeah. Let me have a look, see where else we can find. Hey? Does anybody else? I know there'll be a lot of people in here that have read the release notes or found their favorite parts. Does anybody got anything that we've missed that you want to call out that's quite valuable to you and your business? Oh, there's certainly one I want to call out. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate, but I'll quickly bring it up here. This is the Salesforce screenshot. Now, actually, squint if we can read that. Hopefully, we can see that. This is Einstein, right? Now, Daryl, descriptions. We love descriptions in Flow, don't we?
We do, absolutely.
Do we love writing them?
No, because we're lazy.
That's right. So Einstein has a new feature in Spring 25, which will assess your flow. It will assess the input variables, the output variables, what it's doing to the data, and it will write an automated description saying, "Hey, this is what it looks like it does." Basically, you can go. Obviously, you should review and update according to what is true. There might be also some business reasoning behind it that you should put in. But as we know as well, descriptions are being used in the world of Agentforce to inform the AI what this is actually doing. What's the purpose of this? So Einstein now will explain what it is, which you can customize and then tell Agentforce, which is pretty cool, by saving it as a description.
And that's really important to have those descriptions, because if we're going to have these agents that are going to do things, then they're going to go and be able to go and look for a flow, for example, that retrieves all of our open opportunities. So you might have a simple flow that simply does that. So yeah, the descriptions are really handy. So it looks like we'll be able to generate those, but of course you're going to have to pay for this Einstein add-on, aren't you? Yeah,
that's right. And unfortunately, I don't have it in this preview or guide.
So can you buy a one-user license for Einstein and just use that to update all your flow descriptions by your admin?
I'm not sure which, because there's different. Shocker, the matrix of licenses versus features is complex.
Yeah.
But I know there are some feature licenses you can get that give you some some AI functionality. I'm not sure exactly which does this one. Got my head.
Okay, that's a good one. Thanks, Tim. Now, another one that I've seen, and look, we're not set up to demonstrate this at the moment, but is sales action plans. Somebody might be familiar with action plans from Financial Services Cloud, if you've ever used that. So this is a new feature in Sales Cloud where you can set up action plans, and it's a little bit different to the Financial Services Cloud one, because these action plans can include, here's one that Tim's prepared earlier, thank you, Tim, can include both tasks and events. I think in action plans for Financial Service Cloud, they can only use tasks, and then you've got events as well. So you can set up these templates with an action plan on, for example, what types of things do you have to do for this account? And so you can have a standard set of tasks and events that a sales rep needs to do for these. Look, that's about as much as I know, only just through reading the release notes on that. But that looks useful and interesting. And you can read more about action plans. Thank you, Tim, for the link. Anybody got anything else? Any other questions? Foundations. What's foundations? Tim, I don't really know.
I was just reading this, trying to figure it out, actually. I haven't. I did hear about foundations, but I have not dug deep into it. So I can provide this link as well for a bit of foundations additional reading.
So my initial understanding, I thought this was like a replacement of the old Salesforce Starter Edition or Professional or whatever, but I don't think it is. I think it's an upgrade that basically gives you Data Cloud and some Marketing and Commerce Cloud features as well. Yeah, look, it might be something that
it's almost worth its own session, to be honest.
Yeah.
It looks like
what would be really good would be to get an account exec in on one of these meetings one day, and let's get some of these questions and fire them up. So, and that might be something you can maybe invite. Yeah, have we got a friendly Salesforce account exec that we can get?
Oh, I'm sure I can source one. Especially if they can sell something.
Yeah, if they could give us a bit of an explanation of how that foundations works, yeah, that would be good. And I'm sure they'll want to plug a bit about what are those other things they're plugging at the moment? Those agent thingies.
Agentforce. Everything's Agentforce.
How could we forget? Yeah, I'm sure they'd love to come and talk to us about Agentforce as well. What else? I saw something else about Data Cloud. What was that?
Wasn't related to the. Oh, that's more sort of parallel to Data Cloud. That's the updates to the transform element, being able to merge.
Oh no, forecasting. Forecasting. That's right.
Yeah.
So if you're using forecasting, it's got a new name because it hasn't had a name change for a little while. So it's now called pipeline forecasting is its new name. And And you can also now include forecasting that comes from Data Cloud, and you can also use consumption-based forecasting as well. Now, of course, Salesforce need this because they're moving to a consumption model on these agents. So instead of buying a license for Agentforce, you just pay $2 for every case or whatever, every transaction that they do. And obviously, Salesforce has got to be able to predict that and do some forecasting on that. So that's a change to forecasting. There we go. Thank you for that, Tim. What else? Is there anything else? I think we just about covered everything. Account plans, mentioned that.
There was, this is the one there we go. This is the one I was referring to before. For those that use Transform, you're now able to create what's known as a join and merge or essentially map across two different collection sources across to one. So if you need to tidy up your data, because we're now working in a world of interconnected systems, with Data Cloud and everything else that provides a true 360-degree view of a customer, including inputs and data from every system in your organization. Sometimes that data will need to be sort of polished and transformed a little bit to give you some accurate data inside Salesforce. So this is a not so great example that I came up with, but basically you can map back, if you ever wanted to, your contacts and accounts back to a collection of leads. But another example that Salesforce gave, I think from memory, was they had a system of orders and a system of something else, was dispatches or something, and they sort of weaseled them together and went back to the initial sales order inside of Salesforce. So there's two other collection sources were from external to Salesforce, and using a join, they were able to go, okay, so if this field from here lines up with that field from there, and they kind of come together, this is how we pair all those different sources of data into one succinct place to use throughout Salesforce Live. So powerful, complex, but really, really cool.
Tim, just one thing that's been puzzling me for a while. We've been selling this story of Salesforce as the single source of truth, and let's get all these people off spreadsheets and stuff like that and get them onto Salesforce, and it becomes our single source of truth. And yeah, we've run that race for quite a while, but now this is being disrupted, I think, by Data Cloud. So where does that single source of truth come once we introduce Data Cloud? Does Data Cloud become that single source of truth? It sounds to me like the answer to that is yes, but I'm not 100% sure. Have you any thoughts on that?
Yes, there's a term, and I've got to Google it for the image that I'm thinking of. So there's different management systems, data management systems, essentially. So you can pick, and it depends. There's the Salesforce world, and the Salesforce, this is what we do, which is Salesforce is the single source of truth. But in a lot of organizations, particularly, you look at the massive enterprise environment, organizations, you look at government, you look at multi-departmental, it gets a lot more complex, and there's a lot more systems of data to take into account. It gets very, very difficult to create that true single source of truth. Data Cloud, if I may put it into a bit of an analogy behind me, taming the Wild West, right? In the world of AI, we're working, I don't know if you've seen that chart of like how much data exists in the world, and like year over year, and it's growing at a rate that's just, you can't try and envision it. Obviously, we're employing agents and AI and all these different things to help try and make sense of it all. But to help it do that, we need to get that data into, whether it's in one place or whether we sort of merge it as required and on call, essentially, to tell that full story. That's, I believe, the new intent. For many years it was get it into Salesforce, and then 2017 with MuleSoft, it was parallel kind of let's talk to it with Salesforce, and the Data Cloud is, okay, we've got a million different pieces of information. How do we align it all?
But it seems to me that the Data Cloud is becoming that new source of truth because it's pulling data from everywhere. and assembling it into there. So yes, your Salesforce CRM data about your accounts and opportunities and leads and your cases and so on. Yes, it's still incredibly important, but we're merging a whole lot of other data from external systems, and Data Cloud is pulling that stuff in, and our single source of truth maybe is moving to Data Cloud. But I think we'll leave with that thought, and we'll have a think about that. And maybe when Anne has a new presentation that includes an account exec, maybe that's a question we can throw them as well. Is Data Cloud that new single source of truth when you introduce Data Cloud into your environment? Because of course you may not need it, and you may not choose to bring that in.
So there's also different models. I know that, again, this is a concept for another day in its full intensity, but full context. But there are different ways and different orgs too that you may want to do it. But the ultimate goal, Data Cloud is a tool that you can use to achieve it. But the ultimate goal is to create somewhere, a place that you can go, right, what is the story? What is the real story, including information from everywhere? Whether it's being in Salesforce, referring to Salesforce, having it elsewhere, there's different models.
Tim, last question, one from Anne. She's tried using Transform in her projects last year, but found it a bit buggy. What's your experience been with Transform?
I haven't used it a hell of a lot. However, the reason for it is because it's quite a niche feature where it may, what I'm trying to say is it may not be buggy, so to speak, but that the requirement and the ability of Transform don't align perfectly. It's quite clunky to sort of set up and configure, and that was why I sort of thought, I can show this wherever it is, the image of it setting up, configuring this join. Great feature, love it, not complaining. Setting it up was not fun. You think finding the screen, the stage thing was difficult? Setting this up was crazy. So it's powerful. It will take a little bit of wrapping your head around to sort of really understand its nuances, so to speak. But it's not designed to be as, let's drag in a get records and away we are. If we chuck in a Transform, I won't even be able to show you what I'm referring to with the new feature. But to set it up, I don't know what I'm talking about. To set it up, you've got to have all your different collections. You've got to have a mapping, which I tend to do outside of Salesforce and really visualize it first, because it's quite difficult to set up, and its ability is nuance. I wouldn't jump to Transform first, is what I'm trying to say. I'd jump to it where it's like, okay.
I've even seen Transform used instead of having to do another get records, but we're out of time, and I don't think we've got time to talk about that. So yeah.
Tune in next time.
We might have another session on just on Transform.
All right, that's it for us. Thank you everybody for coming, and over to you, Anne, just to wrap up.
Oh, no worries. I don't have anything. Thank you everyone for attending. We've finished on time, which is way better than when I was doing these. So get back to work, you guys.